My name is Daniel from IGN Japan. I'm based in Tokyo. We publish news and reviews and things like that about video games in Japanese for the Japan market. Also, the company that operates it, Sankei Digital, we do consultancy work and that kind of thing, if that's something that you're interested in. And the rest of the panelists here today, everybody is in publishing. So I'm going to go through and ask you guys to give a self-introduction. So let's start with Neil.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Neil Hemmerjani. I'm from Annapurna Interactive, which is based in LA, but we publish bigger indie titles such as Stray, Outer Wilds, Thirsty Suitors, which just came out yesterday. And I was part of the initial group that was part of the formation of Annapurna Interactive and largely work in production now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So my name is Sarthak Joshi. I represent App Nation. We are mobile publishers who are based in Paris. And yeah, we're a bootstrap startup who has been functioning since last 4 years. We have more than 35 titles across various stores, iOS, Google Play Store, and yeah, we racked over 1 billion downloads across all of those 35 games. So yeah, that's a bit about me. I work in the publishing department and I also take care of the game acquisition department. So yeah.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Agatha Yerbury. I'm Head of Business Development for Asia for Pixel United. Pixel United is a mobile game developer and publisher. We have a bunch of different studios around the world. The 3 main studios we have are Product Madness, based in London, which is primarily social casino. We then have Big Fish Games, who are based out of the US. And we have Plarium, who build mid-core games out of Israel. My background is actually in more traditional media originally. I worked in the TV industry for a long time and moved over to working in games a couple of years ago.
Hi everyone, my name is BJ Guru. So I was born and raised in Nepal, and post Ashiki haircut days, I moved to England. Do you guys know Ashiki haircut? No? Okay, you guys are quite young. So in my teenage years, I moved to the UK and eventually ended up in Finland. And then I ended up working in gaming, not because I was passionate about gaming. After my studies, that was the only job I got. So I ended up gaming 15 years ago. I've been very lucky to work in companies like Rovio, spent 10 years in Rovio, and now at Sense of Games. So we are a part of a big group. We are a small child in a big group. So just getting started 3 years ago. We are a developer ourselves, so we're building our studio in Riyadh and hopefully in one of the European cities. And we are also publishing games. We've started publishing, we're really in the starting phase. And also we're looking at investing into small gaming companies. That's me.
Hi everyone. My name is Pavan Nanda. I'm one of the co-founders of Winzo, India's largest social gaming platform. We have about 175 million users. 5 years old, have 100 plus games on a platform, and very excited to be a part of this esteemed panel. We have a lot to learn from. If you talk about Winzo, what we do is over and above the traditional publishing, which is more centric on IPs or ads, you also provide real money game publishing, which essentially opens an additional incremental revenue stream for game developers. In most cases, it's like 10x, 50x, 100x better than what they earn from Google and Apple. And essentially providing all kinds of supports. We have a $50 million fund from which we can invest. Of course, we are builders, so can go ahead and help you assist you build as well, or can simply just offer plug-and-play solutions to integrate your games on our platform. Look forward.
Awesome, thank you guys. 5 panelists, 45 minutes. We're going to try and power through, but at the end we will save some time for questions. So if anybody has stuff that you're interested to ask, please save them for the end, and we'll try to get around to hearing everybody's questions. First of all, I'm curious to know who's here in the room. Who here is a game developer? Put your hand up. And who is a game developer who's actively looking for a publisher at the moment? You need to talk to these people afterwards. Who here works in publishing? Okay, a few publishers too, so you can correct us if we're wrong about anything. And is there any media here? Anyone reporting? Awesome, you guys can say whatever you want. So let's dive in. So I think let's start with the super basic question: what is publishing? From your perspective, what do you think? Would you like to start now?
Yeah, sure. So, and from Annapurna's perspective, our main goal is to help our team's potential across as many vectors as possible and be a true partner. So, whether that's technical or whether it's like platform relations or creative, it's really like our job is to like fit your model and help teams really make the best game they possibly can, and then of course try to get it to the largest amount of players possible. And I'd probably say like that's the nutshell of what we want to do. But from a day to day, that can change so much based on what a team needs and how we can come in and be additive to that experience.
Yeah, I think he summed up pretty well. But yeah, the gist of it is quite the same. That you help the studios, you help these guys who has a certain idea, and you implement like the correct gameplay systems to make sure that they publish the game or they push the game to the next level, and millions of players can play the game that these guys have dreamt of. So for me, that's publishing, that we fulfill these guys' dreams of who have a certain idea in their mind, and we push it to millions of people.
Yeah, I think they more or less covered it. I'll try and think of something else to say. Yeah, I guess, I mean, there's obviously the fairly obvious parts around kind of user acquisition, marketing, etc. But there's also the support through the data analytics team and user segmentation, A/B testing, like making sure that you're on the right path in terms of building your game, but then also continuing to run and operate it and keep your users engaged.
Yeah, I don't think I have much to add to that. But what I would say is that, so I think it's reaching the right audience, right? I think that's the most important thing, especially in mobile gaming, because you can have millions of downloads, but if the right people are not playing it, then it's not really relevant. So I think that's one thing that we try to offer as publishers is resources, the know-how, the resources, and all the technical things that comes with publishing.
Yeah, just to add to that, see, consider publishers as people who make great IPs into great businesses. I mean, and what exactly is required to make it a great business is essentially a good top line and a good bottom line. So when you talk about top line, it's about monetization and LTVs and retentions. On the bottom line, of course, it's UA and branding and whatnot, and everything that goes in the middle of it. So that's essentially the job of a publisher, to assist great IP creators with making great businesses.
I mean, so some of you guys here are publishing games for mobile. Some of you are publishing for console, PC, and some of it are mixed. I think it's obviously the sort of the specifics of the way that you go around publishing and marketing those games is going to be different. But I think broadly speaking, you're all giving quite similar kind of insight on basically the job itself is broadly the same, right? So I know that some of you are kind of diversifying, going from mobile into PC and vice versa. Do any of you guys have any thoughts on the differences in publishing between those worlds? Anybody who's feels like taking it?
This is a bit of a I don't know answer potentially, but yeah, I mean we're very much mobile first. Although some of our studios did start out on PC and move over to mobile. Fairly recently, we launched Plarium and Play, which is a PC platform for our own games, and I think we are still very much getting smarter in learning how to do PC publishing. I mean, we more or less take the same approach on PC as we do in mobile, and that has been super successful for us in growing the audience. But we certainly would be interested if anyone else has a perspective on different approaches on PC.
What do you think, guys?
Okay, I can say a bit. We are not on PC, but yeah, it's something that we are also planning. We were like a publisher who have just published on iOS Play Store and like Amazon App Store. But we wanted to move into console as well. And yeah, we are currently trying to patch up with different partners to make sure that we push the game on like various consoles. I cannot disclose much, but yeah, it's in the pipe. And yeah, the diversification is something that we are looking forward to.
Yeah, I think you can see that more and more. I mean, we are a mobile first company first. But I think the general thoughts is that we need to look at cross-platform. And if you look at developers like Supercell, they're now publishing in PC as well through Google for PC. Because essentially some of the games people are playing with Android emulators like BidStack, so that's much more easier to play. So I think also from a marketing perspective, I think we need to look at also cross-platform. When MMPs are bringing their ability to attribute into PC or other platforms, I think it'll be really, really interesting.
I suppose it also offers you some sort of flexibility, market by market as well, because if you look at, for example, the Genshin Impact or those kinds of games that are coming out of China, which is very much a mobile-first market, then again, that game is succeeding in the US, for example, on PC, and then it's being played on console, and now it's being played in Japan. It's very popular on both mobile and console. So I suppose it's something that gives you a little bit more flexibility, even for the same title to be published in multiple platforms, right? Obviously, like you guys are publishing games that are developed by internally. I think in some cases externally as well. You guys publish games from other.
Yeah, I'd say for us, we're about 95% external teams, but we do have an internal development studio now that we work with. We just recently announced is doing the Blade Runner game. But our initial model and like the bulk of what we do is publishing folks that have their own external teams.
So what do you think for a developer out there, who's looking for a publisher? What do you offer? What's the reason for them to sign up with a publisher in the first place?
What the publishers are offering is a know-how. Obviously, these guys have like exciting ideas about various games, but these guys, they just lack a bit of understanding in the UA channels and what can be the right geo to push their games. So this is what we are offering. We are offering the know-how. We are offering the know-how in the UA front, in the monetization front, in the creatives front, and yeah, along with the GAGDs and all of that. So we are offering them a complete package. So if they have a certain idea, but they don't know how to just scale it, that's where we come in. We provide all the expertise and help them grow together and eventually have a successful publishing.
Any of you others have any thoughts?
Yeah, so we believe that one essential thing that the publisher provides the developers is managing the financial risks, right? So publisher can put in quite a huge, substantial amount into user acquisition or marketing, right? But you don't see the money back until, in some cases, even 1 year, right? But it's, the industry can change tremendously in 1 year. So if the developer doesn't need to bear that financial risks.
Yeah, I mean, of course, a couple of things which are very straightforward, the financial wherewithal, the investments, I think anyway in this market where you see lesser and lesser capital getting raised, interest rates on an all-time high, there's no revenue-based financing. Publishers have a very strong role to play to distribute any product. Also with IDFA and all these stuff, CPIs are on through the roof. So you need expertise in terms of distribution as well. It's not like majority of a great distributor and an average job done at a distributor will have a very important impact right now on return on ad spends than more than any time before this. And of course, from a product point of view as well, if you're a first-time game developer or let's say you are entering into a genre for the first time, it's very hard for you to know what exactly is a good metric, when exactly do I need to even push the pedal, what are good retentions, what is a good conversion number in terms of acquisition, what is a good LTV, because no matter how many research reports you read, but at the end of the day, it's that breadth of experience, that a publisher brings on the table that can tell you that what is the real stop or what is the point of arrival when this title can really take off. And I think that those kind of expertise are something that publishers are able to offer because they go through metrics of big and small, all sorts of games across genres, across geographies, across different ages and stages. So essentially, all that experience is something that we bring on the table.
Yeah, and also say that in general, like making games is extremely hard. Obviously, it's a very creatively charged experience. You do it for a very long time, and you put your heart and soul into it. So having a strong support structure, someone who believes in you, a sounding board who has know-how, as my fellow panelists said as well, in areas such as QA, localization, platform support, like dealing with something as small as negotiating with middleware. All of that allows you to spend more time just being creative on your game, expressing your voice, expressing your vision, and I think anytime you're not spending, like, making a game to some degree is a wasted opportunity to make it better, to polish it. I don't think I've ever met a single team that didn't want more time, right, to ship a game, and I think that's for a good reason as well. So, as a publisher, that support system, just allowing you to function on your creative best, is probably, I think, the biggest piece of it is for us as well.
Speaking, from each of your own perspectives, what is success in publishing? How do you measure success in publishing? What makes like that project went well kind of? What do you think on that?
Well, for us, it's primarily revenue. So success is, in our case, we want to believe that a game is going to make over $100 million in the first year or couple of years, and that's sort of the target. Ultimately, of course, you want to also delight your users and create games that people around the world want to enjoy. But this is probably coming from the business development person, right? The revenue is ultimately the measure of success.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's managing the expectations, right? And so developers have a lot of expectations toward the publishers, and publishers have a lot of expectations towards developers, right? And many times it's, when when you make a publishing deal, it's like, you are basically you are getting married, right? And it's a honeymoon period, but real things happen, in the next year or so, right? And so, yeah, like Agatha said, I think it's about what your revenue target is, and can you deliver? Can a publisher deliver better than if the developer would be publishing themselves, right? And I think if that happens, then I think you can consider it like a successful publishing.
Yeah, I think for Annapurna, we have a bit of a double bottom line in that revenue, I think, is extremely important because, with that, you can make more games, you can support more developers, and that's a big part of it. But I think also a big part of it for us is when you start the journey with a team and a developer that has a very interesting vision or a voice or something to express, we kind of like plant a flag in terms of being like, this is the best version that the game could possibly be, and then for us, like how close did we get to that target? Were we able to make the best game that, given the time, the resources, the partnership, it's almost like the journey and the creative partnership is as valuable to us as well as the results at the end as well, because I think for us, we're very keen to continue working with teams and continue to grow together and build those relationships. On average, since we work in the premium space, our games take 2 to 3 to even more years of development, and that's a long relationship, right? So if you want to be in bed with someone for that long, you want to make sure that that process was great as well, and the game that you wanted to make, you can be proud of it, and it feels like it checks all the boxes that you set out to do when you started that journey as well.
Cool. Avan, did you have anything on that one?
No, I think, successful publishing, or for that matter, any kind of a partnership, is essentially when both the parties are bringing enough value on the table and there is true cumulative unlock that's happening. So, I mean, if, at least what we are most excited about is, games which we can identify and bring out true potential from, right? Games which, once we get into publishing, couple of years down the line, there is actually a very healthy debate in the market that whether the IP is great or the distribution is greater. It's successful because of the distribution muscle, or it's successful because of, the inherent core IP. I think if you're able to sort of, go there with your partnership, I think that's a successful partnership.
Sarthak, did you have anything on that one too? Or?
I just want to say, add one last thing to whatever they said. Obviously, the financials, the partnership, and everything is quite important. But just one small factor that we also consider is being the game in the top charts. I think that gives tremendous happiness to all the studios and the publishers that they finally made it when they see the game in the top 10, top 50. So that's also a key factor or a small motivation for a studio to have a successful partnership with the publisher.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, making and selling creative products comes with, beyond the financial side of it, there is a sort of a very sort of personal feeling of achievement and stuff that's very important too, right? What are some of the biggest risks in publishing? What are some of, or even if you have any concrete examples of something that was a real challenge to get over? Not so keen.
Sorry, what's the question?
The biggest risks in publishing.
I think we sort of touched on it answering the previous question, but the relationship with the developer and publisher, as you say, over time, if that becomes challenged for whatever reason, then that can obviously kind of cause big problems. And yeah, I mean, Satan, obviously the other one is the financial risk. It's not cheap to build a game, and it's certainly not cheap to scale a game, and there are no guarantees. And certainly in the post-IDFA world, it's got harder and harder. So I think, it's not to be underappreciated.
Okay, let's move on. So in the case of Soundsoft is a sort of a relatively younger publisher. How do you go about sort of building up to success and building up to profitability and some of the challenges and the creative solutions that you've come up with along the way?
Yeah, I think everybody understands that it's a very, very difficult market right now, especially mobile gaming. So we are quite ambitious in terms of third-party publishing, but we are also navigating through different ways of partnership. Okay, so we just launched DC Heroes and Villains with Jam City. So it's a big, obviously, publisher. They are the publishing record, but we're co-funding and co-marketing, right? And then also we're working with 3 or 4 other small developers out of Europe, where it's not purely publishing, but we are co-funding the development, which means they're also chipping in, they have the skin in the game, they will get the results if the game is successful, right? But then for us, we can then own the game as well, right? So it's much more involved than just pure third-party publishing. So we're trying to navigate through different ways of partnership, because I think the only way to sort of overcome this very difficult conditions is to find different ways of partnership. Small developers, big developers, and you will hear from us, there will be a lot more partnership coming from East and the West.
Thank you. I mean, especially when you sort of touching on the idea of partnerships and stuff as well, this might be something that's that each of you will have thoughts on, is that obviously, the game market is exploding all around the world, and here we are in India, where it's become the most populous nation in the world, and mobile phone penetration and data penetration is booming, and everyone's playing games. Also a small but growing, console and PC market. And then you have similar things happening in China and around Southeast Asia, and of course the existing markets in Japan and the US and Europe and all that stuff. So in terms of like getting into like an emerging market, like India, like China, like those kinds of places, what strategies and what local partnerships do you think about?
Okay, I'll start. So for the starters, we try to make sure that we hire someone internally from those regions. So let's say if you want to push some games in the Chinese market, we try to make sure that initially, or like few months prior to the launch, we have few people who are based in China. We have many publishing managers, UA managers who are based in China, so that they can share the know-how. They know the market, they know like the genre or that kind of games that would scale. When you have more than 35 games in your portfolio, not all of them would be the ideal one for each of those markets. So the best thing would be to hire the talent from that particular country. If not, then obviously the second thing would be to just have a tie-up with one such organization who are very specified or have mastered UA in a particular geo, and then try to work on a partnership with them. But yeah, those are the two ways that works for us.
I think, Sarthak, in your case as well, that some of your games that you publish when you go into markets like China and Japan, that you have specific, you don't take your whole slate of games, it's just certain games that operate well in those markets, right?
Exactly. We have 35 games, but only in China we are like live with 3 or 4 of them. On iOS, we are live with all 35, but on the Xiaomi store, on the Play Store for China, we are just live with 3 or 4, which we knew were, with the right audience, with the with the Chinese game players. We had some, theme with the Pokemon one, and we knew that it's going to do well. So yeah, it's not the full portfolio, but it's more like a targeted 3 or 4 titles that would be ideal for those markets.
Agatha, I think also part of your focus is on the Asia market, right? So do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so historically we've been a very tier one Western market focused company. We launch our games everywhere, but the reality is all of the sort of market testing, etc., is US focused. So while we would launch our games everywhere, obviously except China, or where there's other regulatory challenges with social casino game. In the past, we haven't been that focused on Asia. Since I've come in, we've obviously started looking more about how we can make our games more appealing to users in these markets. And obviously, it's a fairly market by market approach. It's a very different approach trying to gain users in Japan to what it is in India. And generally, we feel that the best thing is to work with local experts or partners who, we're not going to be the ones cracking monetization in India. There's far smarter people in this market who are going to figure that out. So our view is, if someone can do a better job than us, then we'd love to work with them.
Go ahead.
Maybe I can go. So for Vinzo, ours is a pure emerging market play. Until very recently, we are dedicatedly focused on India. And very recently, we also announced our launch in Brazil, which again is a very similar market to India. And the interesting thing about emerging markets is they're growing very fast. The macroeconomical factors are very similar, which is like great smartphone penetration, great internet penetration, payment penetration, and essentially a very large population coming and playing games, and you need to make a business out of it. But also another important thing to be thought about is when you need to crack emerging markets, you have to be extremely personalized. You need to be extremely customized with your product. For example, if you look at India, the product that we offer is available in 12 different languages. From a payment standpoint, you need to offer UPI. In Brazil also, there are certain local gateways. The experience, right from the live ops to the kind of notifications, marketing, branding, everything has to be really, really custom. Of course, the solution to that is you either set up a local team, or you basically set up your own office, or you find a partner. That approach can be tinkered around, but you need to have an extremely personalized, localized approach to offer a product that can succeed in any emerging market.
I think localization. Everybody kind of understands the importance of putting the game out in the language of that market. But as you're saying, it's not just the game itself, it's the whole approach has to be localized, right? Yeah. Neil, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a benefit that we have of being an independent publisher is that we have the way to work with teams all around the globe. And it's become a pretty big mission of us to diversify that, not because it's the right thing to do, because it is, but it's just an incredible missed opportunity, especially for India. It's all games for us in some degree are storytelling, even if they're not narrative in nature. And for me, having grown up in India, I know that this is the storytelling capital of the world to certain degrees. The traditions that we've had in the past and the characters, there's just such a cultural richness, and there's such a vast talent pool that's emerging as well. So I think it's kind of up to us to keep our fingers on the pulse, come to events like this, speak to developers, understand what stories they want to tell, and just be as supportive to those as possible.
EJ, did you look like you had...
Yeah, so when you think about MENA countries, obviously things are quite different, right? The sort of the writing from right to left, and then the small things like the weekend starts on Friday. So if you have offers in the game, you don't start on Friday. You need to start on Thursday. And then Ramadan is a huge, obviously very long, festive period where people have a lot of time. So you need to think about that localization, culturalization. So you need to be a bit more aware of those things. And I think the only sort of, local partners will be able to help you with that. Yeah.
Okay, and then in terms of, you've got the game, it's developed, it's published, it's ready to go. Now you need to tell users about it. What's your approach or the importance of things like marketing and PR and being at events and advertising, those elements? How do you guys approach those things? Sarthak, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so it's a long process. We built a great community on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Twitter. We have more than 10K followers on each of these fronts. And yeah, the PR is quite important when we know that a game is supposed to go, over like it's going to do well. We try to make sure we make as much noise as possible on all of those markets. We try to make sure all the employees post about it. So yeah, PR is the most important part. We want everyone to know that the games are live and across all the formats. So yeah, that's the only type of PR we do. Also, we do have some affiliates with let's say the biggest of the, let's say, mobile news channels such as Hit Games conferences, Movie Dictum, where we also share like a palette with them, and they obviously share all of those sorry, all of the history and the success of those games. So that's the kind of PR we are into.
Okay.
A pretty fun challenge that we have as a publisher is that because we operate in so many different genres and so many different sizes of games, is that we basically have to create a whole new audience for every single game that we do. It really starts with the creative process of speaking to the creator and understanding that early on in terms of like who's the game is targeting and where can we reach those people. That starts from a platform strategy, whether it's going to end up on PC, console, or mobile, and that ends up with working with very tight partners in the PR space and the event space to really understand the content of what we're trying to do before we then create a go-to-market strategy. We just know that our gamers love a tactile relationship with our games. So we try to be at PAX, we try to be at a lot of different events as we can. And, obviously COVID put a stop to that for a little while, but that's something we're resuming pretty soon as well. But it's also about like the story of the creator, because a lot of our games are very creator driven. Is how does that factor into our marketing profile, and where do we find audiences and be reactive to it as well? For example, we just noticed that a game we published called Storyteller just was doing great on TikTok. So for us, it became more about like how can we create more bite-sized content that answers that space. And so that process obviously starts all the way from the conceptualization of the game and then goes like well past post-launch support, because a lot of our games tend to have a pretty long tail as well. So just being able to stay reactive, stay servicing our audiences, whether it's with DLC, more content, soundtracks, physical goods, whatever it may be, just to like emphasize as much of fandom as we could.
I definitely think in terms of the way that publishers deal with media, obviously IGN Japan, we're a media site, and I've been in media for a long time. I think the way that relationship has changed as well, right? And in the old days, we would create the content that the audience would look at. And nowadays, you also, you're making your own videos, you're having your own YouTube or TikTok or Instagram channels, and sort of doing your own storytelling on that side as well. Has that been challenging to adapt to?
I think it's been a plus to have a lot of user-generated content come into play, just because we can hear feedback directly from audiences in terms of like what's working and what's not, and then we can find ways to tailor our content, or possibly even like look at games that will play in that same space to help again like charge up that audience. For us, it's very much about building that relationship of trust and credibility with our audience, and a big part of that is listening to them. So user-generated content for us has been a bit of a boon, because it helps us not only get our games to other channels and widen our audience, but also like truly just allow us to have a more tactile conversation with them.
Pawan, did you have something or? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think certainly for Plarium in particular, like they've had huge success with their creative. They have an incredibly talented team, and we've seen some kind of really, really impressive results. I mean, if you've ever seen any of the raid marketing in particular, you'll understand. I mean, we also recently put out a short series on YouTube called Call of the Arbiter, based on the raid IP, and we were just blown away with the feedback there. I think coming from a more traditional media background, to your point, the more direct relationship with the consumer is just phenomenal and really allows to be able to build the brand around the game.
Cool. Well, I think in a couple of minutes we're going to go to Q&A. If everyone has anything that you want to ask, start preparing those in your head now. But one last thing that I wanted to ask you guys about, obviously publishing and platforms, and the way the methods of publishing have changed a lot over the years. And now, of course, the subscription model is another thing that you guys probably have to think about. And Game Pass and PlayStation Plus and Apple Arcade and so on. Are those kinds of platforms? How do you feel about those kinds of platforms?
A lot of our games have been on Game Pass as well as Netflix games now as well, and we're very thankful in terms of the boost they provide, in terms of visibility, in terms of the support we get from them. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like a rising tide carries all ships. So for us, the more people that are playing our games, the better. Just because, especially the nature of the games that we make are very, very unique in terms of genre, unique in terms of the creative voice. So I think all these subscription models have only been extremely helpful for us in that regard.
Do any of you others have any experience having games on those platforms? Not particularly. Okay.
No, but I would like to add to it. I think innovation on payments, the way you package the whole offering is something which definitely can lead to better monetization. We have experienced it in Winzo, wherein we basically have driven the entire scale of the platform on the back of microtransactions. There's a wallet, people can just add money in that wallet and they can go about spending by playing on any of those games, and like the games can be played for free for as low as 2 rupees. So 2 rupees is like a couple of cents, which is like literally people spending half an hour by just spending 10 rupees in a month, in a day. And by having or encouraging those microtransactions, because payments infra is solving at a very rapid pace. I think in India is now, I would say, fairly solved in that sense. And even by collecting very small transactions, sachet size tickets, ticket sizes, we've been managed to build a fairly large scale. We do a couple of billion microtransactions every month. So roughly 4 billion gameplays happen, every time a gameplay is happening, a transaction is happening. But when you add all of that, though very tiny in nature, but like when you have a couple of billion of them happening every month, you can actually create a sizable franchisee out of it.
Thank you. Let's open it up to Q&A. Does anybody have something they'd like to ask? Do we have a microphone for the room, or I'm not sure? You might just have to... oh, no, we do. So, okay, this gentleman here. A mic is coming to you.
Hello. Yeah, thanks. Great talk. So to all the publishers, from their perspective, you guys receive hundreds of games, particularly mobile games, and via different dashboards, your own portals, or maybe some accelerated programs. So how challenging is to browse through all those games and identify the one which will make you in the top charts or maybe get you that revenue? So how tiresome is that, or it's just the process you have to follow?
You have to be able to read the future a little bit too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so I do take care of the website submission, so I totally understand your question, and it's pretty tough because like in a day we get 10 submissions, and across the month I have to go through at least 120 games. So few points for me to focus is, first of all, how polished the game is. Second, how new the concept is. If it's more saturated, then obviously we are not going to target those games. So obviously, how fresh the concept is. Secondly, so we generally also ask for an APK. So we test out the game ourselves. We try to play the game, see how smooth the mechanics is, see what we can improve in terms of the product itself. And then we obviously get back to them with a solid answer if we want to move with them or not. And obviously we work on the product as we move ahead. But few things that if you are submitting a game on any portal or even on the website, make sure that your prototype is well polished. Make sure that the mechanics are quite smooth, so that even whoever's playing it, they are quite confident in the product, and try to make sure you come up with fresh ideas. Ideas that are trending, ideas that are fresh, and that would work for you.
It's a cliche, but it's true that first impressions are super important, right? You only get one chance to do that. Yeah. Did anybody else have a response to the question?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to that is also having a clear view about the market opportunity, and where you see the potential gap in the market and what you think the potential size of the opportunity is. It's really helpful to know that the developer has thought about that as part of the process.
Yeah, so when we're evaluating games for publishing, so we're not looking at a concept phase. So we're already looking at when the game is ready, and then the developer is already testing in the market. So if we see good signals on the CPI level, how marketable the game is, and we look at the retentions, the early retention, the later retentions, and if we see that there's good monetization, then we work together with the developer. So we had cases where maybe the developer is falling behind in some of the metrics in the game. We have very experienced product teams that are working together with the developer, and then we invest into doing market tests. In the US, especially in the US on Android. So we spend about 8 to 10 weeks doing the market test. We have a very experienced user acquisition team, content creation team, and we do a thorough market test. And if we see that that game has a potential, then only we sign up, because otherwise, we don't meet that expectation of the developer, and then we're just, wasting resources on both the sides.
Okay, do we have any other questions in the room? Oh, this lady over here. A mic is on its way. I think. Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay, sorry. We'll take the question from the gentleman at the back, and then we'll take this lady next.
Thank you for the great talk. As a fresher in this industry, I just wanted to know what pros and cons there are for self-publishing and going through a publisher.
Pros and cons of self-publishing versus working with a publisher. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll start. So, pros is that you get to keep the whole revenue. You're not sharing it with anyone. You keep the margins. You can fluctuate the budget. If you want to push, you can do it by yourself. If you're doing with a publisher, obviously you have to agree on his terms. And if he doesn't see the scope, it might not be the right target for you. But on the other hand, for pros of publishing with a publisher is that you obviously get the know-how. They have way too many contacts. They have published game in the past. They know what the trend is, so they can help you with creatives, localization, again, live offside, game development, and all of those fronts. Where if you are new, if you're an amateur, you might not have those skills, or you might not have that mindset. And that's a mindset that the publishers can give you, since they have worked in so many different games in the past. And yeah, that's what you get from a publisher.
Anyone else? Okay, I mean, just to add to that as well, I think another great advantage that a publisher offers over doing it yourself is that when you're trying to get your game out into the rest of the world, into other countries, other markets, and you need to contact media and get get your games reviewed, or you want to look into advertising or whatever it is, to have a company that has partnerships in those regions makes a huge difference, because it's really, really hard to get in contact with every single media outlet in the world, or whatever it is that you're aiming for. So those partnerships are great. But on the other hand, you can do it yourself, and lots of people do. So yeah. Okay, should we take the question from this lady down here? Can we have the microphone, please?
Yeah, got it.
Oh, you got it? Awesome.
Hi, a big hello to the panel. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm Shalmana, and my question to you is that you mentioned that the game has to be really good for you to invest your time and energy into it. It has to be good in terms of revenue making. How much of an importance does it hold for you for the people behind making the game also to have a very strong, astounding background from the game industry, or someone who really know how the game works out? How much of an importance does that come to you when you're investing your time and energy?
Maybe I can go first. So Windsor is the first and the only gaming company that I've ever worked for. So I'm a firm believer in giving more credit to the present than the past per se. Of course, it helps. It has more genuinity. You will definitely commit lesser mistakes if you have experience in the past. But like you yourself said in your question, if there are metrics out there, if the product is ready, if you have some KPIs or metrics to show, then that's what the focus area is going to be. Then it's not going to be about the team's background or what the team's background matters more when everything is on paper. Everything is at an idea stage. But the moment you have built something, the moment your product can be felt in a device, played with, the moment you've sort of got some metrics in place, then nobody's going to really, at least, that's my personal opinion, then I will at least focus more on the metrics than the background of the builders.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's when you're taking a bet on, perhaps an early stage game, a concept, and you don't have the KPIs, and then obviously one of the key data points is the background of the team and what they've managed to achieve previously. But ultimately, if you're at the stage where you have the game and you have early stage KPIs, then if that's their first game, it's certainly less of an issue, because you have other data points.
Yeah, so I'd say when we take pitches, our first qualifier right off the gate is can we collaborate with the folks that are on the other side of the table? Is this going to be a fruitful relationship? Again, it goes back to the idea that we're going to be in the trenches together for a very long time. So not only recognizing whether there is a, I think strength comes in different colors and shapes and sizes, right? Like it doesn't necessarily only stem from background. You could have a really good art style. You could have a really good mechanic that draws everything together. As long as there's something to build from and there's a willingness for bringing us in to be additive to the experience, finding ways to like figure it out together. I think that's probably the biggest qualifier that we look for over everything else. It can be the most polished ship game possible, but if the relationship's not there, if it doesn't feel like this is going to be a good partnership, it's probably not the right fit for us. But the opposite is true as well, where it's like there's a kernel of an idea. We know that if we spend enough time and energy on it, we can make it something, and it feels like this partnership is fruitful to get to that point. That's way more exciting for us.
Thank you. We're more or less out of time. I don't know if anyone had any final thoughts that they wanted to share before we go. Everyone good? Okay. So thanks everybody for coming to listen to this panel. I hope it was helpful, useful. I'm sure all of these lovely people will be very happy to be accosted by you afterwards if you have any further questions. Yeah, thank you very much for coming out, and everyone on the panel, thank you.